The other thing that is really significant to me in terms of I've already mentioned it, I suppose, but in terms of this album and the first album, it's the lineup. It's the lineup, but it's also the musical connection, of course, but it's also the social connection, the way we get on as people. You know, there's a sort of deep relationship that has been formed over many years with most of the people in the band. You know, so you know, Jenny Newman, who is an incredible musician who I played with for years, and continue to in other musical environments, and you know, we're married, and we're you know, that gives me that, it kind of makes it possible to do all this. You know, is our partnership and her support for what we're doing, and the fact that she's a brilliant player and part of the band. Steve McDaniel, who I met, you know, in the early '90s when he was running actually I was engineering and he was playing with the band, playing this kind of knackered old Rhodes, Fender Rhodes. I mean, so knackered I couldn't believe it worked. And I just thought, wow, what a great player, and our relationship began there. Pete Hemsley, who again I've played with since the 80s, and we've played on a number of projects together. We did an album with another project back in the 80s where we literally spent sort of 3 months together in a studio, just the two of us, creating this album and working with some great musicians. And that was a joyful experience, and that really bonded us as friends. You know, and we've been great friends ever since. Robin Phillips has been part of the story since he was a child. You know, when we used to jam around at Margaret's house, you know, Robin, it's wonderful that, you know, he was there as a child, he was kind of around that, and he is now the bass player in the band. So a deep connection there as well. Who else is in the band? I think that's it until we get to and then Jess, although she's new in terms of the band, me and Jenny and Jess have played together in another project for a few years and have known each other again since she was like 13 or something. So there's this bond in you know, the band of brothers and sisters thing, which is really informs what we're doing. So we love being together, and that's a very special thing, special connection, and something which now I'm older, you know, I value so highly, and I think we all do, in a way that yes we did in the 80s, but didn't realise what we had. We were too young to realise what we had, but now, you know, it's a magical thing, and that plays in to the success of Sheer, you know, success from our point of view as musicians and creatives, but it has also been affirmed by the response to the audience, which is, and as a musician and as a creative, you know, you can't ask for any more than that. You know, it's the ultimate accolade, really.
And you just anticipated the question I was going to ask you, which was, talk me through the members of the band. You just did it. But yeah, so let's talk about the new album, Sheer,
yeah.
and how it was created, and
yeah.
how. So did you have the album already written before lockdown? And yeah, so just talk me through that.
Yeah.
About the writing of the album. So.
Yeah, so at the back end of 2019, I got that feeling, I want to write some new music. You know? So I started a couple of ideas, reasonably well formulated, but we decided as a band that it was time to work with a new singer. And it was Jenny actually who said, "Hey, what about Jess?" Because we'd been working together anyway, and I knew that she was a great singer. I mean, I'd seen her perform her songs as a 13, 14-year-old, and instantly recognised, this incredible talent as a singer-songwriter. But very different genre that she writes in instinctively. But I thought, yeah, okay. So at the beginning, or in January 2020, I asked her if she'd be interested in coming up and just trying a couple of things. So she came up into this room, and I had 2 songs at that point. The beginnings of Shout, which is the opening tune on Sheer, and Love Is Coming. Again, not very developed, but I had the kind of melodies and the chord structure and so on. And I also have always wanted to re-record a track from Silent Dance called Cheyenne, which is, I've always loved that tune, and it just felt that it needed re-representing, So I'd always been an ambition to redo that. So I'd kind of got, and we had a go at doing it. When we did Recorded Prophecy, we recorded 2 versions of old tunes, both from Silent Dance, Earth Song and Cheyenne. But they weren't. It wasn't really, it wasn't sounding the way I visualised, and it wasn't quite working. So, but I still had the multi-track stems from that. So I used that as the basis for this new version, and got Jess almost as a kind of audition, I suppose. Although that wasn't technically what we were doing, I got her to sing the vocals on Cheyenne. It's a song obviously she hadn't heard before. So we spent a day doing that, and I just thought, wow, her harmony singing is like nothing else. It's just her voice blends with itself in this really specific and magical way. So I thought, wow, that's fantastic. So then the next day we tried Shout, which is the other end of the spectrum. Cheyenne's a very mellow, it's a kind of lament, so it's a very mellow, soft vocal, or at least the first part of it is. And then the second part is a chant, and I remember Jess virtually expired at the end of it, repeatedly doing this high energy chant over and over again. But anyway, the next day we looked at Shout, which is a much more it's a much harder vocal, a lot more power is required. So wondering how she'd managed that side of it, because everything I'd heard her do before was kind of jazz orientated and was a very kind of emotive, close, intimate vocal, which was perfect for Cheyenne. But when I heard her sing Shout, I thought, oh, she can do that as well, it's fantastic. So at that point I knew that I had a singer that I really wanted to work with, and that she would be able to cope with the scope of what we were doing. So that got me going then on writing more material. So all the rest of the material was written during lockdown, and what I would do is demo a track. First of all, I would send it to Jess, and we were lucky. I mean, every member of the band had access to recording equipment, so I'd send it to Jess, and she would do her interpretation of it, put her vocals on it, build these gorgeous harmonies, and virtually everything that she did is what's on the record. There were a few things that, as the tracks developed and Steve put some great keyboard part on it, Jenny added her her fiddle. As they developed, there were a few little things that needed to go back to Jess to redo, but virtually everything she did is what's on the album. So, and then I would pass it to the next musician, to Pete, and he would. So it was built up piecemeal, independently by each musician, come back to me for sort of editing, feedback, commentary, and that was the only way we could do it. So the whole album was written and recorded and arranged in lockdown, in our own individual spaces. So I ended, so Pete he would send me, 5 or 6 takes, sometimes more, of a track, with kind of different ideas, and then it was for me to, edit those together, put the bits together that I felt worked. So I could choose all the magic moments I could choose from each musician, which is another way of doing it. I mean, had we been able to spend a long time together in a rehearsal studio, we could have evolved it that way, and it would have been different, but and probably great. But this is just the way we were forced to do it, and thankfully it worked out very well because they're all great musicians, and it's kind of ended up, I think, sounding like we did play it together. Miraculously, it sort of sounds quite live, but it wasn't created that way. And then, the last, I think it was in July or early August, we recorded the last track, which was A New Day, which actually is the last track on the album. And at that point I realised, we had, or in fact before that, to be honest, we realised that we had an album, we were going to have an album's worth of material. So I started thinking about how we were going to get this out, how we were going to release it. And I kind of did some research and approached the 3 labels that I thought would be right for what we were doing. And the first one I contacted was Giant Electric P, GEP, which is Mike Holmes's label. Now, that label was set up years ago as a vehicle for IQ, which is Mike Holmes's band. So again, this sort of DIY ethic that we all have to embrace as kind of unsigned artists. So he set the label up to release IQ albums, and then they've kind of branched out into releasing a smaller number of albums by artists that they just genuinely like, that they love the music or they love the artist and they think this is something they'd like to have associated with their label. But they're not attempting to have a great roster of bands. It's a tight, small label, but very highly respected. And they have a German office, and they're very well set up and organised. And they got straight back to me and were interested. Whereas the other 2 labels, it was Inside Out, which is a big label, which have strong ties with GP anyway. And what's the other label? And the other label was K-Scope, which is Stephen Wilson's label, or not his label, but the label he's signed to. And I had an in with them through Darren Charles, who's an amazing guitar player. But anyway, GP came back to us, and they're kind of perfect label for us. They've been incredibly supportive. So Mike worked with me through August and September, to get the artwork together, to get the mastering right. Again, a very creative guy, of course. He's a guitar player in IQ. So he was supportive and gave me advice, and together we just kind of put the finishing touches to a product which he's invested in. That's what you want from a record label, that they are creatively invested in what you're doing. And that's proved to be a great relationship, and we're already working on the next album, which I'm confident will go out through GP as well.
So let me get this right. You got Jess in to do the Cheyenne remake, and it kind of was a way of a kind of testing ground for both of you.
Exactly.
about how it would work out, but you hadn't written a lot of. Had you written some? You'd written Shout, but what about the other tracks? Were they written in lockdown, or had you got them written before lockdown?
No, not at all. So the effect of working with Jess on Shout and Love Is Coming, which I did have in a fairly kind of rough format. I mean, they developed a lot afterwards, but the effects of working with her on that, as I say before, inspired me. I was inspired, so I was just off then writing. So I'd write something, I'd send it over to her. What do you think of this? Oh yeah, and she is very motivating. Lots of very positive encouragement and feedback, which has built my confidence and which I kind of needed, I suppose. So and so then I would develop it more and send it back to her, and there would be backwards and forwards with these new ideas. And as we got into a flow with it, the ideas just keep. I don't know where they come from, but in fact I do know where they come from. I mean, they always start with the seed, which will be something that I've heard. I'll hear something, it'll make me go, oh man, will inspire me, and I just think, wow, that's incredible. I want to do something like that. And then, I'll come back, pick the guitar up, and I'll start playing something, or program a groove, and I'll start playing something, and it will be, you won't recognise the original seed from that, but that's what started me on the road, and then that will develop into something. So that started happening quite intensively. I would just be getting ideas, I'd be developing, sending over to Jess, what do you think of this? Yeah, great, and then so I'd finish it off, and so that over a period of I guess it was from kind of February to July, those few months, everything was written, and because everyone was available, so locked in their houses, as soon as I had something happening, I could send it to Pete, or I could send it to Steve, or I could send it to Rob, or I could get Jenny to come into the studio and play. It's very handy having Jenny living together. Perfect arrangement. So come up and try some fiddle on this, and that's how it evolves in quite a rapid process. So that's starting to happen again now with some new material. Jess has just been up to now. Jess can come here, so that's actually fantastic, because working in the same room, having that immediate feedback, she'll try something or suggest something, and I can go, oh, that's great, or no, let's do it like this, and so that's wonderful. And so we can work much more quickly when we're in the same space. So that process has started again, and we've got a couple of tunes now with well developed with vocals on them, and I've played other ideas, and she's gone, yeah, that's great, no, not that one. So I've got other things now that I'm working on, and over the coming months it'll be another manic process of creativity. It may be harder though to get the rest of the guys, they're starting to do other things, of course, as musicians now are starting to get a little bit of work again. So it will take longer, but that's okay. We all know what we're doing. We've done this before now. We know how to do it. We'll do it again. And the new material, it has some of that confidence in it, I think, that has developed through an 18-month relationship now, creative relationship. And I think the whole band, hopefully, are feeling the same thing. I certainly know from the sessions with Jess recently that she is. You can see it, and it comes across in the recording.
When did you realise that? What was the moment when you thought, do you know what? This is really good. I'm really so pleased, and you felt that, maybe Solstice was having a renaissance. At what point? What moment was it for you?
Well, it was after the point I realised that we were on the go again. This was happening again. Was after those first sessions with Jess here just before lockdown, because I didn't really know how that was going to work out, and Jess didn't know how that was going to work out, and that was the rest of the band had been together a long time. That was the missing ingredient for me, was this creative energy and this great voice, and also a social connection that works, working relationship that works. As soon as I realised that we had that, and I could hear what she was doing with just a couple of new tunes that I'd written and the old stuff as well, that was the point I realised we had something on the go here. By the time we'd done a couple more tracks, I realised we had an album, potentially a really good album, and also in that writing process, I felt a real sense of freedom, because there is always in the back of your mind, this is like a prog band, so I should be doing. There's certain things, certain characteristics and codes that should be in here. So, which is not, it's a confection if you do that. And what I was finding with this stuff, I was hearing Jess singing it, and I didn't care. I just didn't care, what anyone else was going to think at that point. It just felt that this is this is how it's coming out, and this is how it should be. This is how it's going to be, and if it doesn't suit certain people's expectations, we're doing this for us now, and someone's going to like it, because it feels so good. So that was great, kind of throwing off the shackles, if you like, of expectation, which I think had been there in the intervening albums. It's like, why isn't this quite what I want it to be? Why isn't this quite as good as it should be, or as it could be? Maybe because I haven't done a weird time signature there, or the guitar solos, or some other factor. I now know what was required, and that's what we have now. So it's a confidence and a freedom to take the music where it will go and where it will lead, and to trust everyone else's interpretation and ideas, and to trust in the band, and not, I'm no longer, which I have been to some extent in the past, the person who is entirely responsible for everything you hear. I don't feel that anymore. It's a band now, and it's what everyone brings into it. Of course the song's important, but the song is a vehicle for the band, and the way they interact and the way they present, perform and feel the music. That's what's important, and that's what we have now. That's what we finally have. So
how the reaction to Sheer, okay, I suppose you've just spoken about how sort of confident you were of a kind with the new album, but of course you don't really know how that's going to connect until it goes out there.
Yeah.
So talk me through the.
Well, I think we did have a sense of how it was going to connect long before the album came out, because as we were working on this material, and I just felt, and the rest of us just felt such enormous enthusiasm for it. We wanted to share it now, right now. This is happening now. Let's share it. So the only way we could do that was to do these kind of lockdown videos, which of course everyone and his dog's been doing, But this was in March 2020, so this was very early on, before there were really many of those things out there. So the tracks were very much in demo form, and at that point, Love Is Coming was very much in demo form. So they weren't all the real instruments weren't present at that point, but many of them were. We just felt so good about it, and so each member of the band filmed themselves in their studio playing their part, and sent me the videos, and I edited a video together for Love Is Coming. And also, by way of, I was so wanted to introduce Jess as this new face of the band to people, anyone that was interested, So put this little video together of Love Is Coming and just put it out on YouTube and social media, in March of 2020, and the response was incredible. I mean, it was a moment in time where everyone was coming to terms with what was happening. So there was a lot of kind of uncertainty and emotions going around, with people finding themselves locked in their houses, what's happening, what's going on, reevaluating everything. So that was probably part of it, the timing of it. But the response was incredible, just mind-blowing, really, in terms of its warmth and enthusiasm for that song, and for what we were doing. So at that point, I knew we were onto something. I felt that anyway, but that was confirmed by people's responses, which was, and also, a lot of people I didn't know, people that I hadn't heard of for 20 years, people were commenting on it in a really positive way. So yeah, I knew we were onto something then, and again that fed into the confidence and enthusiasm to really pursue it, and that's something we continued through the process. We put a series of lockdown videos of work in progress out there, and that really helped build interest, and it helped get interest from record companies as well, because there was evidence out there of us working and of people responding to it. So I knew in March that it was going to be a good album. I just had to write the rest of it.
And moving on from Shia, where would you like the band to go? How would you like to see that the Solstice Project develop?
Yeah, I mean, now the album's out, and it's done pretty well, and a lot of people have been enjoying it. My first reaction is, let's do another one. Let's do more of this. Let's kick, because we're on this creative roll. But I suppose even more of a driver than that is that we want to play it together. We want to play together, and we want to do gigs. So we got, as soon as it was possible, from the COVID perspective, we got the band together to rehearse, and that was another unknown quantity. How was that going to work? Well, I mean, we knew it would work fine with the old lineup, because we've done it plenty of times before, but Jess obviously is a new dynamic in the band, and I was very confident it was going to be wonderful, but you don't really know till you do it. And also, because Jess writes all these gorgeous harmonies, we want to represent those live. So we've got 3 fabulous singers in as well, that haven't... I mean, Jess hadn't met the rest of the band anyway. I hadn't even met them, apart from a very brief photo shoot. So I hadn't spent any time with them, certainly hadn't played any music with them. And then on top of that, we have these 3 new singers that one of the singers me and Jenny have known for years, so she brought in the other 2. And so how was this dynamic going to work in a rehearsal room? Well, it was incredible. It was just immediately, I mean, with Jess, it was just immediately incredible. Just felt perfect, like we've been playing together for years, really. So coming into the rehearsals, we were coming in with a different attitude, with a new attitude, which meant that, so in the intervening years, again, back in the 80s, we were playing together all the time. So, that's a completely different stuff. Intervening years, we would come together, do a couple of rehearsals, do a couple of gigs. That'd be it. So, so this time, what everyone came in with a different vibe. First of all, they had spent a lot of time preparing. So, this is music we hadn't played before. We hadn't played it together before, so that was essential. But everyone was really on point in terms of I'm going to know this inside out before we even get into the rehearsal room. We had done with Jess and the 3 singers. That's Meg, Johanna, and Olivia. We had done a lot of online preparation, so we were really looking to be ready to do this and to do it correctly. So I think that was another change, and it paid off big time. So really, that first time we were, how is this going to work in the studio? Everyone was on the money straight away. Jess, in terms of chemistry, just slotted right in, but also brought such an energy to the band, which is what you need from a front person, and also as guys that have been doing this a long time, having that kind of youthful energy and vibrancy, it affected us all, lifted us all, and we'd all come in. We knew this was the best album we've done, and the truest representation of us as musicians, and we came in wanting to nail it and really realising it. So that fed through the whole rehearsal process, and I kind of knew in my heart that it was going to be something that we should record, that we should capture all this stuff, because for me it's such a sort of momentous thing. And also, I'm sad that there's nothing from the early days. There's no record of it apart from Silent Dance. There's no record of it. So now I feel like I want to capture everything that happens. And there's good stuff happening. So those rehearsals were a joy. Yeah, the band were. The way everyone played together and connected kind of just reaffirmed my hopes and expectations of it. It was fantastic because the end game is what we want more than ever, and more than anything right now, is to get out and play this to an audience. We know that people like hearing the album, but now we want to play it, and because that connection between artists and audience, that kind of collective experience, is something that we've all missed anyway, for 2 years. So there's that longing to do it in any case, but to do it with this new lineup and this new music is it's thrilling, the thought of doing it. And I just think and hope that that people will feel that.
Which, in the rehearsal was the first time you all got together and really thrashed it out.
Yeah.
How did you feel about doing the old stuff? Which particular tracks have you enjoyed performing, or you thought came out of all that rehearsal experience that you had?
What, in terms of the old stuff?
The old stuff and the new stuff. Yeah. Which tracks stood out for you?
Sure. Yeah. So, I expected the new material to work, because it was this lineup, and it all did work. But there are the tracks that for me are most exciting to play are Shout, which is the opening tune, which is mere 13 minutes, and we've decided it opens the album. We've decided to open the live set with it as well, which is a bit of a dangerous move, because we've always opened the set with a song called Morning Light, which is kind of 3 minutes long. It's very simple in its structure. There's not much that can go wrong with it, but there's so much that can go wrong with Shout. It could be a complete train wreck, but if it is, hopefully the audience will roll with us. But anyway, that's a track that is in rehearsals has felt really good. If a little dangerous, it's felt really good. And the other track, favourite, I think, it's not just me, which is a track that only just made it to the album actually, because I wasn't sure it was quite working. It's called 7 Dreams, which is a groover, and again it's having the voices, because there's a lot of harmony in it, and it's a groove, and so you can just kind of sit back on it, I suppose. Shout is kind of edge of your seat stuff, can I play this bit, whereas 7 Dreams is more laid back, and that really works. But the big surprise in the rehearsals was how the old tunes worked out, and how they have been refreshed and reimagined with this new lineup and the singers. And Sacred Run is a tune that we've played for years off circles, and we've probably played it at every gig since then, usually as an encore if we get one. So that was one that we wanted to try. And when we were looking at it online beforehand, I know Jess was liking the track, but when we played it in the studio, the singers really responded to it, and we were working on the chorus part just as an a cappella chorus check through, and when they sang it, the four of them a cappella, it just sounded incredible. So immediately Pete was like, you need to start the tune with that now. And so it does. So these tunes have kind of evolved because of the input of the new singers and the new lineup, and have been given this new energy. So that track's a standout. But also, for a number of reasons, it's a song called Guardian, which is actually on the New Life album, which is the album that me and Mark made to accommodate all the material from the early 80s that we couldn't fit on Silent Dance. And Guardian's another long track, and I've never felt that we've had a lineup that could do it justice. So although, despite the fact that Rob Phillips has asked every year since 1996, literally every year we do a few gigs, can we do Guardian, because when he was at university, it was a song that was part of the soundtrack to his life at that point, so he kind of loved the tune from there. So we haven't played that song since 1985, and I thought, yes, time, right, okay, let's give it a go now, and that's another song that has really worked. It's really worked with this lineup. So it's lovely. Find Yourself, another one. So there's a bunch of and Cheyenne, of course. So there's a bunch of old tunes, and it's amazing how they sort of sit amongst the new songs in the set. And the way this lineup has, as I say, reimagined them in a new light, which I think, we love it. So hopefully, the audience will approve as well.
And the gig that you did, how did you feel about that?
Yeah.
The secret gig.
So the secret. Well, we did this before in 2007, which was the sort of, well, actually it's this era started in 2007. That's when Pete, because in the 90s Clive Bunker was playing drums, and we worked for a few years, which was fantastic, and then it fell apart again, and it was Pete actually, we were both working at rock school, and Pete saying, why don't you get Solstice back together again? He said, no, and I'll play drums, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, perhaps it's time to do that, because we've got 3 kids, and they were sort of a bit older then, and we didn't have to be up all night with them, and various other things, factors that sort of played into this might be a good time to revisit that. So we did a few days rehearsal, and we finished up with just kind of opening the doors to the rehearsal space for a couple of hours, inviting a few friends in, just to give us that edge and that reason to be really focused on playing the set as we would at a normal gig. So we did the same thing this time on day. Oh, that's right. And we did 4 days rehearsal. So we did a weekend of rehearsal, and we opened the doors for the last couple of hours, moved the band onto stage, put our necklaces on, put our trinkets on, and played to about 30 people. Friends and family. Safe audience, just enough people so you have to pay attention to what you're doing. I mean, when you're doing a gig, it's a cliche, but it's true. Whether there's one person there or 10,000 people, and we've played to big audiences before, it's the same thing. You're on, and you're into, it's showtime, and you're going to play the best you possibly can. So that's what we needed, so just to prove that we could do it, because the rehearsals had been great, kind of hour and a half of music, but we hadn't played it back to back, We hadn't played it as per a set list. We hadn't dealt with those issues of going from one song to the next, which is totally essential, of course. So this was our opportunity to do that. So invited a few friends in, got some lights on, and it was, I guess, most of the people in that audience had not been to a live gig for 2 years or 18 months or whatever. So that obviously played into it. We were playing for the first time. This whole thing, I have to say, does feel like a beginning. It really does. So it felt like, and we were playing for the first time with this lineup, but it kind of in many ways felt like we were playing for the first time ever. And so there was an energy in that room. I think, as I say, partly people responding to live music again finally, but also to this very sort of special moment of presenting what we've been working on for the last 18 months, finally presenting it, and people being able to see what that connection was, what that chemistry was between the bands, and particularly Jess, who no one had seen play live before, including us. You know, how all those elements would come together, and it felt exceptional, and it felt magical, and it was extremely emotional. You know, extremely. It's happening again. Yeah, so it was wonderful, and we came out of that thinking, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, we can do this, and there's something special happening here, and yeah, we will take that forward. Yeah.
We've both spoken with Martin Keelty. It'd be interesting if you just talk me through, you know, getting hearing from Martin and how that kind of affected you. And sort of how does that whole thing? Because Martin's sort of got he's part of the journey in a way now.
Yeah, Martin Keelty is very, very much part of the journey, and yeah, he's a very highly respected, journalist. Rock journalist is what most people know him as. You know, author, poet, creative, artist, and obviously I was aware of his work particularly with Prog magazine. You know, which is I mean, that was amazing. 2007 or whatever is when we restarted the band again. There's this magazine. There's a glossy magazine for prog music. I couldn't believe it. Incredible. Anyway, so Martin's been involved with that for a long time, and many other projects. So I knew him by reputation. So when the album came out, obviously, it was sent to various people for reviews, including to Prog magazine, and he was news editor at the time, and it came to him to review it, and he'll, unbeknown to me, but I'm sure he'll tell you the story of that. But anyway, pretty much out of nowhere, I got this. I mean, we had started communicating actually, because it had been sent to him, and he kind of acknowledged that, and we had a little communication about that. But then one night, at 2 a.m, I got this email from him, and he had obviously spent time to sit back and listen to the album, and he was just so effusive about the music. I think it's quite rare for him to do this actually, but he'd actually listened to the music from beginning to end and absorbed it, and spent some time just hearing it. And he wrote me this incredible email acknowledging that, and it just completely blew my mind. It blew me away. He made me feel like it was sort of icing on the cake in a way. Yeah, he made me feel like I'd really achieved something. He made me feel like an artist in a way that possibly he never have before, because I have such respect for him. So for someone like that to say what he did to me personally, you know, in a very kind of open and honest way, it was an incredibly uplifting moment for me as a musician and as a writer. And there began, you know, I think I did ask his permission, but I just thought, I've got to share this. Yeah, because he's so eloquent. You know, he's a poet. He's so eloquent. You know, I can't quote it now, but the way he wrote about it, it just said, expressed and conveyed something that was obviously really genuine, and is the kind of, you know, to hear that as an artist is extraordinary, just extraordinary. And so there began a relationship with Martin, which has been a really important part of what has been happening since that time. So this was kind of, you know, right at the beginning of this year, and he has sort of become, you know, a support, a real support to us of what we're trying to do, and he's become involved in it. So that led to him suggesting, you know, why don't we do an interview? Why don't you come over to the boat? You know, we'll do a little interview with you and Jess or something, just to help bring the album to people's attention. So someone really well placed to help us was, you know, whereas normally you're chasing to try and get someone to give you some exposure. He was going in as someone that was kind of just into what we were doing, which was lovely in itself, but then offering to help and support us. And that led to a whole series of interviews that have really contributed to what we're trying to do.
And of course, he reviewed the Secret gig.
And he reviewed the Secret gig, yeah, which was, yeah, again, a lovely account of what happened. Again, articulated in the words that I just, you know, that's what he does. He can he's a storyteller. You know, he can articulate and tell stories in a way. Yeah, that's just not a skill that I have. So yeah, a lovely review of the gig, and I hope it will be an ongoing relationship with Martin. You know, it's wonderful to have someone like him part of the story and helping to tell it.
In terms of the future for Solstice, could you ever see Solstice being, say, more commercially successful, possibly? What would be the?
Could I ever see?
What would need to happen to?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be wonderful to you know, for you guys to make some sort of amazing income out of this.
Yeah. Can I see Solstice becoming more successful commercially? No. No, but success is not measured in, you know, what we get from it financially, and it can't just as well, because that is not happening, you know, and it's not happening for all, you know, kind of mid-range or bands, you know, in terms of their size. Yeah, it can happen for the really big bands. But for bands of our size, and bands that, you know, even bands that can play 2,000 capacity tours, you know, through Europe or wherever they're working, much harder now, of course, in Europe, they can only just make ends meet. In other words, finance the tour. And yeah, bands at that level, so someone like Fish, you know, it's really tight. He's a very clever guy, and he has a lot of experience of making a tour work. So he can just about do it and pay his musicians and crew to do it. And hopefully he makes something himself, but I know it won't be a lot. So there's no ambition here for commercial success. To be fair, there never has been in the band. And there isn't now, because I know it's not realistic. You know, what our ambition is, or our hope is, that we can play to more people, we can play we can play to audiences that want to hear us, and I do believe that will develop in the coming years. I mean, we've bands that are much more established than us have are talking to us about playing with them, which is amazing. That will be fantastic, because that will introduce us to their audience, and I know that they'll like what we're doing. I'm confident they'll like what we're doing, and most of them will. We've got some of the bigger festivals of inviting us to play, so where we're playing to a few thousand people or more. So we're starting to get exposure to a wider audience, and that's of course what we want. That will never lead to us making money. That's the reality of it. But hopefully it will enable us. It will bring in enough money to allow us to do it, because that's where we're at right now. To do those rehearsals, that costs money that we don't have. To do a gig, the fee for the gig will just about cover the expenses to do it. That's the deal. That's just the deal and the way it is. But what we want to do is play our music to people, and I do think, and that is the ambition, that we are going to be able to access a wider audience in the coming years. I can see that's going to happen just because of the interest that we're getting from promoters.
And any unfulfilled ambitions?
No. Well, yeah, to play to a wider audience, to have the music, because I really do think there's a lot of people out there that will like the music. They just need the opportunity to hear it. So the ambition is to allow them to hear it, is to be able to have the opportunity to take it out there and play it to people, and to have, through GEP and others, to be able to access. It's about accessing the audience. It's never going to be about making money, sadly. That's okay. That's not the reward we need, actually. It would be lovely to have it. But as musicians and artists, if we can fund the opportunity to do it, then that will be the ambition fulfilled.
Chatting to Pete the other day, I asked him similar kind of question about Solstice and the future and so on. And Pete likes the idea of going on tour. Putting a tour together. Yeah. How enthusiastic are you, or how realistic is that to go on tour for Solstice?
Yes. So yes, we'd love to do a tour, and because we are all we'll work in education of some sort or another, teaching our instruments or whatever it is, we tend to be tied to term times. So it is possible, because we all have, an extended summer break. So it is possible to do a tour, and it's something I'd love to do. What's certainly going to happen is, and it's already happening, is kind of, long weekends or sort of mini tours. So we've been talking to a promoter in Norway, and there are plans afoot to do some gigs over there, a festival and a gig in Oslo, and these are the kind of things that are starting to come in. So I think we will get some interesting gigs, and the thing is, the great thing about a tour is that if you're playing every night for 2 or 3 weeks, man, you're good. You're good after a week of doing it. That sweet spot that you can't really get to any other way other than just playing together every night. That's a magical place to get to. And of course, again, back in the 80s, we do that all the time. So that was a familiar spot to be in, and one that we haven't experienced since. So I would love that to happen, and I don't see why it can't. In the next few years, couple of years, actually do a proper back-to-back 14 dates, 20 dates or whatever. It'll just have to be a summer tour, which is no bad thing.
Would you describe yourself as being more driven now than you've ever been?
Yeah, I'm fortunate in that I'm in the position now where I can dedicate a lot of time to this, which is what it requires. So I spend hours and hours, days and days, yes, working on creating new music, but dealing with social media, communicating with people, ringing people up, arranging things. I mean, just trying to get 9 people together in one place at one time, that's no mean feat, I can tell you. So, yeah, it falls to me to organise all this stuff and to make it happen. But as long as you can see it's having a positive impact and things are happening and, everyone's on board, then it doesn't feel like a huge effort, I enjoy doing it. And I'm in a very supported situation here. This, I wouldn't have been able to do this 5 years ago. I can do it now because I'm just able to devote more time to it. Less, bread and butter work, more creative work. The balance is improving. So, yes, I am driven, definitely.
Brilliant. And I know I'm going on and on. One thing we haven't talked about is the music video, A New Day. I've just realised we've never even spoken about. But that is something that you've been heavily involved in during the lockdown period, wasn't it? It was kind of...
Yeah, it was November, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was November, so it was actually in a...
Why did you pick A New Day? I mean, what was the thinking behind that with the video?
Something else that we've never done before is to have a beautifully made, high-end video to represent what we're doing. We've never done that before. In fact, we never made a video before. I mean, it's just being live footage of stuff. We did a live album, filmed playing at Cropredy, but we've never made a video. So, and this album, it deserved that, I think. And the track "A New Day" is the track that has that most people have expressed a connection with. That have responded to in a positive way, and have felt that it's significant in some way, in terms of the rest of the work. So that was the obvious choice, but making a video is an expensive, difficult, time-consuming, massive project. So this is odd now because I'm going to be talking about you to you. So we just decided that A New Day was the track to try and make a video for, and I wanted it to be, something special, something beautiful, something a bit different. So what you need is the right creative team to make that happen. That have the ideas, the vision. And can execute it technically. This comes back to a community of people. Again, referring back once more to silent dance, to that period where there was a community of people engaged. So this is happening again, and with A New Day, I was able to access a team of people to get involved in that. In particular, Mark Jepson, who I've worked with before, a filmmaker I've done some soundtrack work for, and we've known each other for a long time. A brilliant filmmaker, fantastic director. So getting that's key. That's the key, is getting someone to direct the work who has a vision, a strong vision, and can execute it. So Mark brought in James Westlake, who is a superb cinematographer, and these are the same guys that have captured footage of us rehearsing and doing our little secret gig. So again, very much part of the story of what's happening at the moment, contributors to that. And because we all kind of work for each other in this community, it makes it possible, that things possible that wouldn't otherwise be because of the cost of doing them. So creative people that are willing to engage and get involved and put the time and energy in, and the results speak for themselves. So there's a lot of thought went into A New Day, the video, how to shoot it, how it should look. And of course, I suppose the surprise wasn't that huge a surprise, but the surprise was Jess, because it obviously revolves around her as the character in the video, and she's a natural, a pro, a incredible work ethic, and under Mark's direction, produced this wonderful footage, and it kind of, as a good video should do, it's designed to represent the music, which it does really successfully. So that was fantastic to have a piece of. Again, we were COVID struck again, in the sense that we couldn't get the whole band together. However, we worked around that, and the result is this gorgeous video, which has been incredibly well received, and represents the kind of quality, I suppose, of what we're going for with the new music and the album.